The painter, from his special view as poet, marks the magic and the miracle, describes the other dimension, helps us to rise above and beyond the limits of the here and now. The painter-poet is Marc Chagall.
Oui, ces poèmes là-bas.
Yes, tell him I said
Vous êtes aussi très bon poète?
The book is a chronicle of his creations on display in the major museums of the world.
Ah oui? He says he writes for himself.
He leafs through the pages of his paintings, recalling places and people in his life.
Amsterdam. Amsterdam. Ça c'est Eindhoven.
Malraux has said of him, "He is the greatest image maker of this century. He has looked at our world with what he himself called the light of freedom, and seen it with the colors of love." This is a homage to Chagall. They have come here to the south of France, the great painters of our century, in search of a special light. He is astride the ladders of the light. We have come here to this place between the mountains and the sea, to the museum in Nice, built by a city and nation to honor a great painter of the world. The creations are his gift, the biblical message of Marc Chagall. In Chagall's words, "I sometimes feel as though I were born, so to speak, between heaven and earth, as though the world were a great desert where my soul wanders like a flame." I would like this place to be used for the exhibition of the works of art and the manifestations of great spirituality of all peoples. I would like their music and their heartfelt poetry to be heard. Since childhood, the Bible has fascinated me. I've always thought of it as the greatest source of poetry of all time. I have continued to seek out its reflection in life and art. The Bible is like a musical vibration of nature, and I have tried to communicate that secret. I've made these paintings in keeping with that faraway dream. I wanted to leave them in this house so that people would have an opportunity to experience here a certain peace, a certain spirituality, a religious feeling, a sense of life. These paintings, as I conceived them, do not represent the dream of one particular people, but of all mankind. Here also, the words of that love I feel for all will perhaps be uttered. Perhaps there will be no more enemies, and like a mother who gives birth to her baby in pain and love, so the young and the not so young will build a world radiant with new colors. The Song of Songs is an ode to love, a lyric of light to life. And the village of Vitebsk, his place of birth, is reflected in the creative colors of Saint Paul de France. In my paintings, I have hidden my love. I inhabit my life like the tree of the forest. Who hears my cry, who looks at my face, buried in the light of the moon, as though I had been dead 1,000,000 years. My mother's gift to me radiates through my body. I do not open my mouth, so that my heart does not take flight, nor grieve for me like a bird in the night. In my paintings, I have painted my love, the angels of the visitations and the fiancés who do not go towards the canopy of marriage. The perfume of a flower illuminates the candles into rising blue, the day of my birth. I've hidden my dreams in the clouds, my sighs, breaths, flying with the birds. I am proceeding, and in walking I exhaust myself in front of fires which come from the world. My love is as water scattered to the four corners. My paintings hide behind me. Now, walking in his garden at Saint-Paul-de-Vence, near 90, he reflects on the art of his life. I paint what I see and what I dream, Chagall has said. He defies description. Of the works of the modern masters, his creations cannot be categorized. He says, as an artist, one does not learn a craft, but life. This then transforms the work. Everything can and will be transformed in life and art if we speak the word love without shame. In it lies true art. That's my technique, my religion. The new and old religion handed down to us from times long past. It's been said of him that he was born romantic. There's a joy and a nostalgia. And even now he's constantly wonderstruck, surprised by the magic of light and life. In his garden, there's a fresco of existence, a mosaic he has dedicated to his wife Vava, to blend with his home in Saint-Paul-de-Vence.
Oui, c'est des choses de Saint-Paul. Un peu un soleil. Je fais un soleil, je fais pour Madame Chagall.
From the privacy of Provence to public places, his works are displayed more than those of any artist of our century. They're scattered like Chagall angels, his messengers, in Europe and North America.
En Amérique, je fais aussi.
Yes, in America I also did something for the Metropolitan. But I like America a great deal because, for me, I think of America along with Canada as being together as great countries which can play, it is hoped, a great role in the world.
Après, quand même.
In New York, 5 million people a year pass by two great murals. Here, the red rhythm of the triumph of music. Chagall said, as always, I want to appeal not only to the eyes, but to the very heart of the others. If I were asked to explain, I would reply, ask these children. In their eyes, you could perhaps read the answers to your questions. We want the happiness in the clear colors, free of the turmoil of the earth, so that art may enter into a paradise, as was once realized in the introduction to the magic flute of Mozart. Like a bright morning, the sources of music, a dream world that floats in yellow. Chagall commented, on these walls are to be found heroes of music, the singers, the dancers, who have wanted and who yearn to play the contents of the dream of their lives for all of us. I am among them, with the means given to me not only by the academies, but by the hard life of my parents and the affectionate esteem of my friends. His own life decorates his work. With Madame Chagall by his side, he speaks of the past and the secret of his long life.
Harry Rasky. Il demande, est-ce qu'il y a un secret chez toi dans ta vie, dans ton travail, comment tu as tellement travaillé, tellement poursuivi tout ça? Est-ce que tu as un secret?
J'ai un secret. Je crois que j'ai remarqué ma mère d'une manière tout à fait spéciale. Et j'ai remarqué son amour pour moi. Ça m'a tellement captivé que je me dis à moi, il faut que je justifie l'espérance de ma mère en moi.
He said he was very much influenced by his mother, who loved him very, very much, and he said he must justify her love to him.
And that helps keep him going.
Keep him going.
Et je voulais le justifier pour que ça ne trompe pas en moi.
Yes.
Justifier son amour pour
she
moi.
She believed in him greatly, and he didn't want to disappoint her.
Parce que dans les événements de la mère et de ma mère à moi, je vis un commencement d'une certaine existence.
Yes, that is very difficult to translate.
Traduit, c'est la poésie.
Yes, he says he's seen in this love to him.
Je vis une symbolique de premier ordre.
Yes, I can't translate it very well.
Oui, c'est la poésie, ça.
It's symbolic, yes, and yes, I think he didn't want to disappoint her.
C'est pas tout le mère. Ma mère était une femme illettrée, mais je crois qu'elle a donné à moi tout l'amour qu'elle a possédé, parce qu'elle n'a pas été gâtée par la vie avec l'entourage.
He says his mother she has no education and nothing, but she was a wonderful woman, and she loved him, and she was not spoiled by life at all. She has a very difficult hard life.
J'ai senti qu'elle exige de moi une chose presque miraculeuse.
Oui. And he felt that she loved him and expected him to become somebody. So he didn't want to disappoint her. That kept him going always.
In the beginning, he was born on July the 7th, 1887, in the Russian village of Vitebsk. Later, in paintings and the eloquent prose of My Life, he recalls that beginning.
I don't remember. Perhaps my mother told me at the very moment I was born, a great fire broke out near the high road on the outskirts of Vitebsk. The town was on fire, but first of all, I was born dead. I did not want to live. Imagine a white bubble that does not want to live, as if it had been stuffed with Chagall pictures. They pricked that bubble with needles. They plunged it into a pail of water. At last it emitted a feeble whimper. But the main thing was, I was born dead. I hope the psychologists have the grace not to draw improper conclusions from that. In our eyes, our mother had a style that was rare. As rare as was possible in her workaday surroundings. I seem to see you, Mama. My father, for 32 years, was simply a laborer. He lifted heavy herring barrels, and my heart used to twist like a Turkish bagel as I watched him. That little house near the Pestakovic Road had not been touched. I saw it not so long ago. How could I possibly have been born here? How does one breathe? The first thing I ever saw was a trough. Simple, square, half hollow, half oval. A market trough. Once inside, I filled it completely. My town, sad and gay. As a boy, I used to watch you from our doorstep, childishly. To a child's eyes, you were clear. When the walls cut off my view, I climbed up on a little post. If then I still could not see you, I climbed up on the roof. Why not? My grandfather used to climb up there too. And I gazed at you as much as I pleased.
He sees the world in a special way. I and the Village, painted in 1911 in Paris, is seen in the mirror of memory If you ask him to explain it, Chagall will say, I don't understand all my pictures. They're not literature. They are merely a pictorial arrangement of images that obsess me. The cow in our yard, with her milk as white as snow. The cow who used to talk to us. There is a mystic interpretation of his life and all of creation that comes from his link with the mystical Hasidic sect, a belief that everything natural can be made holy. As Chagall says,
I've forgotten to remember you, my little Uncle Newt. With you, we used to go into the country to fetch cattle. How happy I was when you consented to take me with you in your jolting cart. Somehow or other, we got along. There was always something to look at every side. My grandfather's house was filled for me with the sounds and smells of art. It was only from the hides hung up and drying like linen. It seemed to me that there were not only smells, but a whole swarm of happiness bursting the planks and flying off into space. They slaughtered the cows cruelly. I forgave all. The hides dried piously, prayed loving prayers, implored the heavenly ceiling for the atonement of the sins of their murderers. My grandmother always fed me with meat specially roasted, grilled, or baked. What was it? I didn't know exactly. Every Saturday, Uncle Newt put on a tallis, any tallis, and read the Bible aloud. He played the violin like a cobbler. Grandfather listened to him dreamily. Rembrandt alone would have fathomed the thoughts of the old grandfather, butcher, tradesman, and cantor, while his son played the violin. You know, I was greatly excited as I stood beside my grandfather's seat in the synagogue. Beneath the drone of prayers, the sky seems bluer to me. The houses float in space, and each passerby stands out clearly. Behind my back, they are beginning the prayer, and my grandfather is asked to intone it before the altar. He prays, he sings, he repeats himself melodiously, and begins over again. It's as though an oil mill were turning in my heart, or as though a new honey recently gathered were trickling down inside me. And when he weeps, I remember my unsuccessful sketch, and I think, will I be a great artist?
It happened so long ago. Is Chagall's Vitebsk a real place or an imaginary place?
Yes, I think, unfortunately, yes. It is to me. Like I told you before, I incorporated scenery too often in my paintings. It is perhaps a fault. A fault, perhaps. It proves that something has entered my being too deeply, like a microbe, you know. And it's difficult to get rid of it. Yes, I think that is a defect in my life, that I'm too much a defect. Not a defect. I'm too intimately linked with that place where I was born. Like since you come out of the womb of your mother, you think about your mother. It's the same thing, but it has nothing to do with patriotism. They are simply human things. That's all there is to it. You are born there. If I were born in the North Pole, I would remember the North Pole. Or if I was born in Canada, I would be a Canadian. There is no miracle in that. It's a very natural thing.
Peut-être pour certains types de gens. Il y en a des types qui s'en foutent de leur endroit où ils sont nés. Sont des gens heureux, peut-être.
There are turrets and towers in all our childhoods. He has seen our whole inner world in a burst of color, maybe more real than the visible world. His art revolves around the mythical and supernatural world of childhood, its mystery too often destroyed by adults. Mine alone is the land that exists in my soul. I enter it without a passport like I do my own home. It sees my sadness and my solitude. It puts me to sleep and envelops me with a scented stone. Gardens blossom within me. My flowers are invented. The streets are mine, but there are no houses. They have been gone since childhood. Their inhabitants wander through the air in search of a home. They live in my soul. Here is why I smile when my sun scarcely shines, or I weep like a light rain in the night. There was a time when I had two heads. There was a time when these two faces were covered in a loving dew and melted like the scent of a rose. Just now, it seems to me that even as I draw back, I move forward towards a high gate, behind which walls stretch out, where spent thunder sleeps and lightning shatters. Mine alone is the land that exists in my soul. The colors of memory, reflections of his mind. He says,
if there were hiding places in my pictures, I would slip into them.
He thinks every day is a fine day. But he is constantly aware of living between two worlds. His joy is tinted with nostalgia. Remembering himself as a young man, he says,
I loved you so much that I thought I could remain a little boy forever.
There is a certain dash about him as he poses for a family portrait with his mother and father and the others, back in those days in Vitebsk, when he first learned to paint.
Like my father, my teacher pen lives in my memory. Often when I think of the deserted streets of my town, I see him now here, now there. One fine day, but all days are fine, as my mother was putting bread in the oven, I went up to her and I said, Mama, I want to be a painter. What, a painter? You're crazy, you are. Let me put my bread in the oven. Don't bother me. My bread's all ready. Nevertheless, I'm going to be a painter, I thought to myself, but by my own efforts.
Proudly, at 20, he poses for a self-portrait and proclaims,
I am also a painter.
His sister becomes a sublime study, one of his early works. His meeting with Bella Rosenfeld, who becomes his fiancée, is a turning point in his life.
Her silence is mine. Her eyes are mine. I feel she has known me always.
He paints a nude. His mother is shocked. Take that girl away, his mother says.
I lose myself deep in thought. I fly above the world. I go to bed and I dream of policemen, soldiers, epaulets, barracks.
Townspeople become his subjects. And there are also the historical people. The Holy Family, influenced by the icons while he is in St. Petersburg.
My heart was quiet with the icons.
There is the Hasidic, mystic reverence for life. The belief that a ray of God's glory dwells in each man and means redemption. A fascination with birth and death.
Suddenly, one morning, well before dawn, shouts rose from the street below our windows, a woman alone sobbing.
The dead man an early masterpiece painted before he will leave for Paris. The Wandering Fiddler on the Roof, the symbol of Chagall himself. Where does Chagall himself believe he belongs? Does he feel rootless?
No, écoutez, je n'appartiens, mon Dieu,
I love France. I'm French. I love France very much because it is a country. Look at that. It's unbelievable. If I were not in France, I would not be who I am. Oh, if only you could have seen my paintings before I arrived in France in 1900 to 1911. The paintings were of a certain kind.
Je m'excuse que je dis ça. Oui, il y en a de 908, 10, etc.
France is a country which contributed enormously to the artists in the 20th, 19th, and 20th century, enormously.
Paris, 1910. It says, like one driven on by fate, I arrived in Paris. The words rose to my mouth from my very heart. They almost stifled me. I stammered. The words fought to get out, full of eagerness to shine with this light of Paris, to bejewel themselves with it. The Eiffel Tower fascinates him because of the concentration of surging forces it reveals. He recalls, my art needed Paris like a tree needs water. I was struck by Paris light as soon as I got off the train. I felt airborne. Then I began to understand color. What glorious freedom. My first step was to be liberated from myself. Until that time, I feel I painted in dark tones. Dedicated to Apollinaire. The French poet Apollinaire, who called Chagall's work supernatural, is to have a profound effect on his new freedom. It is called his most intellectual work, an attempt to link the cosmic idea with the human figure, man and the universe measured on each other. Memories of Russia explode within him as he paints with a passion. Facing the past, his back to Paris. To Russia, asses and others, created on a bed sheet, becoming a haunting examination of his ideas. The poet Blaise Cendrars gives lyrics to the light Chagall sees. He sleeps. He's awake. Suddenly he paints. He takes a church and paints with a church. He takes a cow and paints with a cow, with a sardine, with heads, hand, and knives. He paints with an ox's nerve, with all the dirty passions of the little Jewish town, with all the exacerbated sexuality of the Russian country. For France, without sensuality, he paints with his thighs. He has eyes on his back, and abruptly it's your portrait. It's you. It's me. It's him. It's his fiancée, the corner grocer, the cowherd, the midwife. There are tubs of blood in which the newborn are washed. Skies of madness, modern mouths, the Eiffel Tower like a corkscrew. Hands, the Christ. But Christ is he spent his childhood on the cross. He commits suicide every day. Suddenly he stops painting. He was awake, now he sleeps. He strangles himself with his tie. Chagall is astonished to be still alive.
Christ is a poet, one of the greatest, through the incredible irrational manner of taking pain unto himself.
He provides Chagall in Golgotha with an expression of innocence.
Only a child had its place on the cross.
Adam and Eve. The Bible always haunts him. He flirts with new forms, absorbs and discards. About his cubist friends, he says, let them eat their fill of their square pears on their triangular tables. I was looking for another kind of realism, psychic, not material. Symbols left me cold. As far as I am concerned, I have always slept perfectly well without Freud.
I went straight to the heart of French painting, and there I clung. Beginning with the markets where, for lack of money, I bought only a piece of a long cucumber. The working man in his blue overalls, the most zealous followers of Cubism. Everything showed a definite feeling for order, clarity, an accurate sense of form, of a more painterly type of painting, even in the works of lesser artists.
But he is homesick, he says. Only the great distance that separates Paris from my native town prevented me from returning to it immediately. The Louvre put an end to all those hesitations. When I made the tour of the Veronese rooms and the rooms in which Manet, Delacroix, Courbet are hung, I wanted nothing more.
In Paris, I thought I had found everything, in particular the art of my craft. Everywhere I saw convincing proof of it, in the museums and in the salons. Perhaps the East had lost its sway in my soul, but it was not only in my profession that I sought the meaning of art. It was as though the gods stood before me.
Somehow the very beauty of Paris seems to pound in his loneliness.
And I'm dragging out my days on the Place de la Concorde or near the Luxembourg Gardens. I look at Danton and Watteau, listen to the sounds around me.
Chagall would work all night and walk all day, viewing the galleries and listening to concerts in the gardens. And although he was to say, "Paris, you are my second Vitebsk," he also would say, "I love Russia." After 4 years, by way of Berlin, he returns to Russia. He says, Vitebsk is a place like no other, a strange town, an unhappy town, a boring town. But there's Bella.
I had only to open my bedroom window and blue air, love and flowers entered with her. She seemed to float over my canvases for a long time, guiding my art. I never finish a picture or an engraving without asking for her yes or no.
It is a happy time. The double portrait with wine glass seems like an extraordinary triumph of love over the laws of gravity and perhaps the limits of human strength. There is tenderness and there is humor. Bella herself writes of the birthday, "You drag me into the stream of colors. You bend down behind my ear and whisper something to me. I listen to you as if you were about to sing me a song in your soft, deep voice. And together we rise as easy as can be to the ceiling of the gaily decked room and fly away, hand in hand. We reach the window and want to pass through. Through the window, an airy cloud and a bit of blue sky call us." Reluctantly, Bella's parents consent to the wedding.
It seemed to me, if they had put me in a coffin, my features would have been more supple, less rigid than that mask that sat beside my future wife. I thought I was going to faint. Everything whirled around me. Deeply moved, I squeezed my wife's slender, bony hands. I wanted to run off with her to the country, to take her in my arms, to burst out laughing. It was the height of ritual perfection. At last, we are alone in the country. Woods, pines, solitude. The moon behind the forest, the pig in the stable, the horse outside the window in the fields. The sky, lilac. It was not only a honeymoon, but even more a milk moon. I was the winner. It seemed so perfect.
But the war rumbled over them. And then the revolution. Lenin is a tumbler on the table. The rest of Europe is closed to to Chagall. Against Bella's advice, he becomes a commissar of arts. She warns him it will end badly. That is what happens. They move to Moscow.
What should I do? My wife preferred big cities. Look at this. She loves culture. She's right.
Moscow provides the possibility of observing Russian religious art and designing for the Yiddish theater.
Neither Imperial Russia nor the Russia of the Soviets needs me. They don't understand me. I'm a stranger to them. I'm certain Rembrandt loves me.
As for Vitebsk, he says, my town is dead. The Vitebsk course is run. My memory is on fire. Lighter than a flame, than an airy shadow, I hasten to shed tears. It is time to return to France and to be born again in Paris.
Ah oui, c'est vrai, c'est vrai. À Paris, vous savez, les artistes du XXe siècle...
In Paris, you know, the artists of the 20th century, the 19th century, when they came to France, they surely experienced a second birth. As in the time when artists went to Italy, they were born a second time in Italy. Possibly later, in 100 years, they will go to America and be born a second time.
In 1923, he returns to Paris with Bella by his side and the greeting, "You're famous." There's now a child, Ida, and a new studio. Some initial disappointment. He must repaint some of his great works because they have been stolen while he has been away. Perhaps the years that follow could have as their motto, dreams, fantasy, love. He says, Paris, my heart's mirrored image. I should like to blend with it and not be alone with myself. The garden, the moon, the evening and you, story of lingering sweetness, a kiss, 1,000 kisses, or rejection. Sadness, sweetness, he loves the evening, the lingering fragrance of the garden. The light, liberty, and success he finds in France makes him say, "This is the happiest time of my life."
I was apparently considered a mystic, but what is mysticism? The birth of a child is also mystical.
About Ida at the window, 1924, and his discovery of the French countryside, he says, "I want an art of the earth, not merely of the head." France between the wars seems as peaceful as the church at Chambon. For Chagall at that time is a river without banks. Time past and time present are one. But there is a tide to time, and with trips to Jerusalem and Poland, he paints Solitude in 1933. The sorrow of the world in the shape of melancholy meditation. The fate of the Jew in exile, perhaps with the self-deceptive calm of the universe. How, in fact, have world events affected his art?
Comme pour tout le monde.
Same as everyone else. You are. Or you become the events of the world. As you are wounded, you become an invalid. Or you, when you are an artist, you are. If you are gifted that way, it transforms your talent, it changes your talent. It's absolutely reflected in your work.
Toute l'humanité change avec des événements extérieurs. Les artistes aussi.
Europe is burning. The elation of the 20s is a thing of the past. The colors of innocence are transformed by the darkness of anxiety. He must plan his personal exodus. A flayed ox becomes a crimson carcass of cruelty. A wall rises up between me and mine, a mountain covered with graves and grass. And man's fate is now nailed to a real cross of pain.
Pour moi, la crucifixion, c'est la crucifixion. Il y a certains comme des ils sont comme des.
There are some like the crucified.
Pour moi.
For me, the martyrs. Everything that was happening not too long ago in those terrible wars, they are the crucified, the martyrs. That's what it is. It's not strictly religious, it's a human thing. Of course, then it was a sublime cause because they were crucified for a certain ideal.
When war comes, even though pursued by the Nazis, Chagall is reluctant to leave France for America in 1941. In his urgent works of the period, he paints the pain of the Jewish martyr, all victims of war. He sees man in his loneliness and isolation, agonizes the end of innocence, and recalls in a poem those who will not survive the harrowing Holocaust. The martyred artist. Did I know them all, visited their studio, considered from near afar their paintings? Now I leave myself and my years, I go to their unknown tomb. They're calling me, they beckon me, the innocent, the guilty, to their grave. They ask me, where were you? I have fled. How can I, while weeping my tears so long, my eyes dried to salt, withered from ridicule, so that I destroy the last hope? How can I weep when every day I hear them tearing planks from my roof, when I am tired of fighting my war for this piece of land where I remain, where later I am put to rest? I see the flames, I sense the smoke, rising clouds blue and darkening. I see the hair torn out and the teeth. They cast upon me enraged colors. I am standing in a deserted place, in from a pile of boots, of clothes, ashes, and dung, and I murmur the prayer for the deceased. As I stand thus at the foot of my paintings, David with the harp descends. He wishes to help me weep, to sing some more psalms, and after him there is Moses, saying, "Fear no more." He commands you to stay calm until he engraves new tablets for a new world. The last spark goes out, the last body has extinguished, silence takes over, as before a new torrent. I stand up, I take leave of you, I walk toward the new temple, and down there, I light a candle before your painting.
Well, if you're talking about my biblical messages, they are real biblical people. Of course, I introduce people from another era. Parents, your parents, my parents, all parents. I have introduced in the biblical sphere all that reflect our era as well, so that it won't be just a personal thing, but a worldwide thing.
His personal pain is in his painting Around Her. In America, Bella, who had a premonition she would never return to France, dies. If my sun shone at night, as I sleep all covered in colors in a bed of paintings, I wake up in despair at a new day of my desires, not yet sketched, not yet colored. I run up there toward my dried up paintbrushes, and like Christ I am crucified, nailed to the easel. Have I finished my painting? Is it finished? Still brilliant, still wet, still incomplete? Stop. Yet another stroke of blackness, red and blue, I replied, and this disturbs me. Oh, how it disturbs me. Hear me, funeral bed, dried grass, herbs, weeds, love burned out, lost love, yet again rekindled. Hear me, listen to me. I have devoured your moon, the dream of your innocence, to become your angel and to cherish you anew.
There was a loud thunderclap and a brief cloudburst about 6 o'clock in the afternoon of September the 2nd, 1944, when Bella departed from this world. For me, all was darkness.
Bella's death is a dreadful loss for Chagall. With her, a world disappears, and for months he is unable to work. The Firebird and works of a dark mood follow. In August 1948, he returns to France to look for a lost light. Eventually, he will settle in the walled city of Vence, and there he will meet Valentine Brodsky, known as Vara. They marry in 1952. He dedicates works and poetry to her vital warmth. For Vara, with you I am young. When over there the trees threaten and the sky becomes more distant, your eyes touch me. When each step is lost in the grass, when each step walks on the water, when the waves beat in my mind and one of the clouds summons me. With you I am young. My years fall like leaves, colored as one of my pictures. They glisten next to you. The smile upon your face, more clear than the clouds, I run whither, pondering. You wait for me. A honeymoon in Greece with Vava produces a new chemistry of colors. The blue Mediterranean dominates, and he explores the naturalness of living matter. When they return to the south of France, there's peacefulness in the patterns and places, and a wonder in all things. Flowers flow in his fantasy. They are the incarnations of color, love's messengers.
the story of Ulysse. Il demande l'histoire de l'Ulysse. Qu'est-ce que c'était?
Des choses grecques. Des
Yes,
choses grecques.
he did it while it was Mediterranean.
Un grand personnage.
Yes, and
Un héros pour sa patrie, pour l'humanité, tu peux dire.
but it was also something for humanity, and it is universal story.
Right.
That's why he
On
chose
peut
it.
dire même biblique, quelque chose.
And he said it is, one could say,
Dans
it is
son genre.
nearly biblical.
Nearly biblical.
It is almost biblical. But it has in it the Chagall humor. There are the temptations and the obstacles. Its message is that a soul with love and intelligence and wisdom will allow the hero to triumph. In the legend, he has created a magic circle of light, almost like an ancient circus. Acrobats and clowns play a prominent role in his work.
Mais écoutez, vous savez, tout le monde
Listen, you know, everybody knows there's a lot of acrobatics and many events and many characters.
Des choses de clown, de clownade. Certaines guerres qui sont été annoncées.
Some wars have been declared by clown-type persons, if you want. It's not something extraordinary. It's a normal thing. In life, there are clowns, acrobats. There are the wise, there are the prophets, as in the biblical era. There are the kings, false kings, and true kings.
Des vrais rois, il y en a de tout.
During his childhood, strolling acrobats and clowns were without a doubt the first artists Chagall met. They were the first beings whose special knowledge made them able to give form to the wondrous. The ritual of the circus becomes a metaphor of mankind. The unreal and mysterious aspects of an unfolding spectacle, like the unfolding adventure of the world.
I've always thought of clowns, acrobats, and actors as tragically human creatures who remind me of the figures in certain religious paintings. Who isn't a clown complete with funny hat? As people are a circus themselves, they don't have to go to one.
The question must be asked, why do so many people defy gravity and fly in his paintings? What does the flying mean?
It's
surely the way I see it, because there was a great need to find a certain ideal thing which is not on earth, which was beyond our everyday life. So I, as a boy, a small boy, I used to think there surely be this ideal we are looking for, which is completely beyond the world of our home and street. That is why the hope to be able to fly, to try to find that ideal. I must tell you that I painted my flying characters before Sputnik was put in orbit. I used to be told, why do you look up to the sky? Nobody can walk there. And now you see later, they have nevertheless walked in the sky.
Time and space fly about in a painting called My Life. In it, memories of the past and present float from his brush. The poet Aragon asked, what was the painter dreaming of? For how long had he been imagining? Since ancient times, the times beyond, the destined times? He whose heart seems to be a violin on wedding evenings in a tiny village about to fall asleep on the edge of the deep blue night. The moon has already risen, but there is still a little daylight on the flowering tree and the horse's nostrils. Here only the flowers whinny that were cut in the skies. A couple high above the world perpetuates the mute song of loving Perhaps somewhere that no longer exists, a place of words abandoned at the bottom of old dictionaries. Perhaps the painter's mission was to put clumsy bouquets in a blue vase on a table, and nothing else except to walk along the roofs like a song. He still works, trying to find new forms for his fantasy of the Four Seasons. The master in action. It is to be a monumental rectangular block, 82 feet long, 16 feet high, and 13 feet wide. On one side will be spring and summer, on the other, autumn and winter. The sun will seem to move on either side, depending upon the seasons. A mobile sun, an expression of life, its works and days, hopes and joys, leisures and love, but also the human worries, a fresco throughout the seasons. Each shade is selected for sight and sound. The colors must whistle, he says. The subtlety is studied. Even when he works with associates, he adds the personal flavor. A mosaic wall is now at the First National Bank of Chicago. He says, nothing can be done with a single line. You must triple or quadruple it and get the shading. Look how God created the world with little flies and mice. As I grow older, I see more clearly and distinctly what is right and wrong in our way of life, and how ridiculous is everything not achieved with one's own blood and one's own soul. Out of the ceramic comes this new series of gouaches of the Four Seasons. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also he hath set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end.
Autumn, winter, spring, summer, chase me towards where?
In his simple watercolors and his monumental works around the world, perhaps is the answer. The great stained glass window at the United Nations.
I was asked after the death of Hammarskjöld, I was asked to make, the word escapes me, a memorial after the death of Hammarskjöld and of the others who died with him. I was asked to make a grand painting. And I did a stained glass window around the prophet Isaiah of the war, and it was placed there.
Like the ancient masters, he combined his own art with the light of the sky at the United Nations in New York to construct a window that is seen by millions. For thou art my lamp, O Lord, and the Lord will lighten my darkness. He that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of God. And the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord. Many of his works have been for the theater. Has he always had a passionate love of the theater?
Ah oui, j'ai fait, oui, on me demandait la première, quand j'étais au fond, les premières choses.
The first was when I was in Russia
Pendant la Révolution.
during the revolution.
On est venu chez moi, c'est le théâtre juif.
The Jewish theater in Moscow, which was founded in 1919, requisitioned a mural for the first performance, a drama by Sholem Aleichem. I did 3 paintings for the Yiddish theater in Moscow. That was in 1919, and the mural. Later, the theater was closed during the days of Stalin. And the paintings, I was told, and I've seen them, were saved and are in the Tretyakov gallery. They haven't been shown yet. They're rolled up and hidden for the moment, but when I went there not too long ago, I saw them, and that's the story. In America, I did the ballet Aleko with the choreographer Massin. Its story was based on a poem by Pushkin, the famous Russian poet. Later, I did the ballet The Firebird for Stravinsky. I designed many, many costumes, as you see. Later again, while I was in America, I did the Magic Flute by Mozart for the new Metropolitan Opera.
About Mozart, Chagall says, I adore Mozart. I couldn't refuse. He's a god, and the Magic Flute is divine, the greatest of all operas. No, I don't know why. It's impossible to say why a god is divine. I got as close as I could to Mozart. He was so witty, so spiritual, so religious. Perhaps the greatest work of theater is reserved for the city of great spectacle, Paris. The Paris Opera House becomes a golden frame for a monumental undertaking, the vast dome. In his dedication, he explains his achievement. I wish to reflect, as though in a mirror high above, in a bouquet of dreams, the creations of actors, of composers, to recall the colorful movement of the audience below, to sing like a bird, without theory or method, to render homage to the great composers of opera and ballet. He has always felt that theater and painting are made for each other, and the bright world of Chagall's mind dances across the dome in his adopted France.
For me, France is an incredible country. Oh, I know there are other countries. I like America, for example. I also like Israel because it is a country of the Bible. And if I had not been there, the Biblical Museum would not even exist. I did it because I visited the city. I'm religious because I adore the Bible. As a political student, that is how I'm religious, because the Bible is the highest form of poetry. I like Israel, but unfortunately I do not live there. But I go there once in a while.
A part of Chagall will always live in the Holy Land, perhaps has always lived there. The soaring impact of Jerusalem and its light, he has said, is the most vivid impression he has ever received. Out of the light of the Jerusalem sky and colored glass, he created a shrine to the 12 tribes of Israel, as he says, as effortlessly as birds sing. This despite the Orthodox restriction on showing a human face. These are Chagall's 12 tribes based on the poetry of the Bible and his mind. Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength. Simeon and Levi are brethren. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Judah is a lion's whelp. Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea. Issachar is a strong ass crouching down between burdens. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, and he shall overcome at the last. Out of Asher his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly words. Joseph is a fruitful bough. Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. These are Chagall's 12 stained glass tribes of Israel. Nearby in the parliament buildings of Israel, he designed magnificent tapestries. Woven into the colors are his own thoughts and the prophecy of Isaiah.
I've dreamed a dream. An angel grasps me and pulls me upon the ladder as distant souls sing to the new country, to 2,000 years of exile, to David, my son. They have sung more sweetly than Mozart and Bach.
O Jerusalem, how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of the messenger of good tidings that announceth peace, the harbinger of good tidings that announceth salvation. The discoveries of the heart, that is what Chagall offers us. And such is the offering that he provides between earth and heaven for the sun to diffuse its beams. Where do the colors come from?
D'où viennent tes couleurs? Tu as utilisé tant de couleurs, beaucoup. D'où vient ça?
Vous savez, le destin de ces peuples, des peuples juifs, m'a fait un grand coup dans ma vie. Et je vis, à travers la Bible, je vis des sources incroyables comme couleur. Dans ces peuples, dans son histoire, dans la Bible, je vis une source inouïe de coloris que je n'ai pas besoin d'aller chercher dans la nature.
He says, in the Jewish people, and in the Bible, he sees such a, what would I say?
Possède une monde coloré,
they have
incroyable.
Such a colorful
Qui ne, on ne peut pas le
that
voir,
he hadn't to,
on ne peut pas
to
le voir,
look
on
for.
peut l'imaginer.
Yes, he hadn't to look elsewhere. That was his
Il est
inspiration.
plus riche que dans la nature. Parce
It
qu'il
is
faut-
rich. It is more rich than in nature.
C'est surnaturel, on peut dire.
And so we return to the Museum of the Biblical Message of Marc Chagall. Perhaps this achievement is the one closest to his heart. It is not so much a house of religion as a home for the spirit. The works here are his poetic variations on biblical themes,
I believe in the truth of the Bible as I believe in the truth of Mozart. I don't go to such and such a church or synagogue. My prayers are my work. And then I read the Bible. I believe in prophets. These are the laws of my religion.
Displayed here is half a lifetime of Chagall's creation. It is the source of our inner history. There are watercolors that date back to the 1930s. Aaron in front of the candelabra, candlesticks, so frequently lighting Chagall's works. There must be an angel in Chagall. He paints so many of them. This one overhead as the Israelites eat the Paschal lamb. An early version of God creates man. Jacob leaves his homeland to go down to Egypt. His sons and his sons' sons go with him. Noah's sacrifice and his fellow Chagall creatures. The circumcision ordained by God unto Abraham. Joseph. Joseph recognized by his brothers. Sarah mourned by a weeping Abraham. All these prophets, designed for an early Bible, were to lead to the biblical message. Chagall has said, I couldn't see the Bible, I was dreaming it. He has found the drama of modern man in the creation of man. And God said, I will make man in my image, after my likeness. The Lord God planted a garden in Eden in the east and placed there the man whom he had formed. The Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to till the soil from which he was taken. After the fall, man being lower than the angels, Chagall tells the story of the prophets, who are the saviors of man. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And God said unto Noah, Make thee an ark of gopher wood, and of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark. The rainbow created by Chagall, master of the shades of color, is white. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. There were giants in the earth in those days. Abraham, to whom God said, Walk before me and be thou perfect. Chagall chooses the moment of the visit of 3 men in the form of angels. They've come to announce to Abraham's wife, Sarah, a child in her old age. And it came to pass after these things that God did test Abraham and said unto him, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and offer him for a burnt offering. In Jacob's dream, again, the past, the present, and the perhaps are woven. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. In the dream, Chagall sees the prophecy of all the pain to come. There is the metaphor of Jacob's wrestling with the angel, the dialogue between man and God. These patriarchs are a prelude to Moses. Moses, who, the Bible says, knew the Lord face to face. Moses, like a Vitebsk father, like a grandfather to any of us, has a special vision for Chagall.
I don't know if he will explain. Il demande, qu'est-ce que ta vision de Moïse?
Qu'est-ce que quoi?
Ta vision de Moïse.
Ma vision de Moïse?
Oui, comment tu vois? Parce qu'il y a beaucoup de Moïse dans le message biblique.
Pour moi, je peux dire, pour moi, le rôle de Moïse, c'est énorme. C'est un personnage grandiose qui a voulu annoncer des perspectives humaines de tout premier ordre.
Vous avez compris?
Il était tellement fort qu'il n'est même pas entré à Jérusalem, que Dieu était jaloux de lui. Il a dit, tu vas mourir.
Oui.
Tu n'entras
Non,
pas.
parce qu'il n'a pas fait, il a cassé les tables
Parce
de
qu'il
loi.
il avait des doutes un peu.
Oui, il avait cassé les tables de
Je peux
loi.
le dire.
Alors, he says it, you did understand
I
it, yeah?
didn't quite get it.
No?
No, not
He said for him it is one of the most marvelous person who existed, and he created something wonderful for humanity, for the law, and everything was really what he admires.
Et comme chaque
Greatly.
génie, il était puni encore une fois par Dieu pour ne pas entrer comme triomphateur à Jérusalem. Comme chaque génie, il
He
était
said,
puni.
like all genius, he was punished by God, and he couldn't go into Jerusalem.
Does he see any relationship between himself and Moses?
No, that, I don't think so. No, that is not quite. Il dit, est-ce qu'il y a une relation entre toi et Moïse? Ah non.
Faut
Non,
pas exagérer.
One shouldn't exaggerate.
The Bible is his guide, our guide. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto Moses in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And behold, the bush was not consumed. As Chagall comments, Moses, like all creative persons, isn't without his troubles. In the wilderness, he calls to God that he cannot find water for the angry people. Behold, I will stand before thee there upon a rock, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. Since Moses has seen the face of God, he of course cannot see Jerusalem. Finally, God's ultimate statement to Moses. And he gave unto Moses upon Mount Sinai 2 tablets of stone, written with the finger of God. The rule of law and the laws of love. Each man has his own vision of God. The face of God is never shown by Chagall. What is his idea of God?
De Dieu? Ah, écoutez,
You asked me a question that even Einstein had no answer to. And I am but an ordinary man. What is God? Ah, no. It is given to nobody to know what is God. For me, God is love, the divine. It's love. I often say that it is through love that we manage to live our poor life.
Une vie idéale, on peut approcher seulement par les méthodes d'amour.
His final statement is, as a poet wrote, lovers drenched in their own springtime. He has painted the unity of the universe in all things. His Song of Songs is really a song of love, like a bouquet of flowers. Marc Chagall's light, his message, his life, has been a gift to us all.
Jamais pessimiste.
Ah, yes. I'm never pessimistic. I'm pessimistic when we think that life, as soon as our earthly life must come to an end, then I'm caught for words. Then I'm neither pessimistic nor optimistic. But essentially, I'm not pessimistic because my motto has always been to look for love. Only love interests me, and I am only in contact with things that revolve around love. So I'm never pessimistic.
Quand il y a des événements, quand on pense faire du bien pour les gens, mais ça la fait du mal quand même. Ça, je suis un peu pas très content.
Voilà, j'ai fait mon devoir.
Tu fais très bien. Attends un peu.
Ok. Ça, c'est bon.